Welcome to Sacred and Unfiltered, a Roots and Remedy podcast, where the truth doesn't need a filter and healing isn't always pretty. We're here to speak spirit, boundaries, self worth with softness, strength, and always unfiltered. So today we want to talk about um, what happens as we start to go through a breakthrough, and what we go through when we feel we're connecting more with the divine, connecting more with just outside of ourselves. Because, you know, there's, as much as there is beauty in falling apart, there is also a lot of pain and a lot of struggle that happens with it. Because when we break down and we go through these different things, we don't necessarily know how everything is going to be for us. So, it's hard for some people to fathom what it's really like, because it can break everything in your world. When you look at your relationships with yourself, with your friends, with your work, it's all going to start to come a little bit crumbling down, and things are going to fade away, and things are going to unravel for us. Because this unraveling, as much as it is painful, it's a necessary process for us to go through to get to our true selves, our inner selves, and connect into our subconscious a lot better. So through all of this, it's going to cause a lot of pain, and you're going to start to feel like, am I losing my mind? What is going on? But there is beauty through the breaking apart of everything, because it's not really breaking as much as it's unraveling. Everything that doesn't serve you anymore is falling away. So you're going to see some of your friendships that maybe you are newer friendships. Some of them might be old friendships. Some of them aren't going to serve you any longer. So you can't fret too much when these things start to fall away. You can't sit there and think about, what can I do better? You're doing everything you can. Let it happen. Let it flow through. Let it all unravel and fall away. You're going to start to notice that small talk isn't as much something that you like to do anymore. Small talk is unnecessary to you. You feel almost annoyed by it. You find more solace with your being by yourself. You kind of crave that a little bit more. You kind of want to disconnect from other people, other things, and you're going to go through all of this, and it's going to really start to upset you, and sometimes it might bother you a little bit. And so we have to realize what these are, and let those emotions come in, feel the emotions, and sit with them for a few minutes, sit with them for an hour, sit with them for a day, whatever it takes for you to, you know, look deeper into the meaning of everything, because everything's going to be um, coming from a different lens. You're going to start to see and feel differently about everything that's happening in your life, and you just have to let it happen. Because if you don't, you're definitely gonna come away a lot more stressed out, and not near as connected as you want to, because you have to let all of these things fall away from you, from your aura, from your energy. And as much as letting this all go and letting it all happen, as much as we need to do that, we need to really um, look at the differences between when we suppress some of our feelings and we surrender some of our feelings, because those are two completely different things. Because suppression is, we're going to bottle it up and deal with it later. We're not going to address it right now. I don't want to deal with those feelings. So the more we put them away, the more they'll come back at a later time, most likely a lot stronger and a lot more detrimental to ourselves. So we need to sit there and say, fuck it, I'm going to sit with it, and deal with it, because that's the reality of it. Because as much as we want to sit here and take this very soft-handed approach, sometimes soft-handed doesn't work. We've all been in a tough spot where, you know, as much as we want to say, love and light, or peace be with you, or peace or bless you, those type of things, sometimes that's just not how we're feeling. And so sometimes you gotta just let it all fall away. Sometimes you have to, not suppress it and surrender to it, because when you surrender to it, you live in the moment, you feel it, and then you let it go. You're surrendering to it, so you're letting it go. Where suppression is, you're pushing it away from yourself and pushing it down inside yourself because you don't want to deal with it. Where surrendering, you're dealing with it in a very loving manner, and so that way it's a lot easier for you to take on, um, and feel through the emotions when you can just feel them, and give yourself that grace, give yourself that time to process that emotion, feel that emotion, every bit of it. If it's someone that's pissed you off, let every bit of that frustration, that anger, everything, you need to feel it all, because when you don't, you're gonna come back and you're gonna have harder time. And we're gonna talk more about the anger in the next episode, and how we deal with the anger aspect of when these things come up, because you also have to realize that these, like, all these different things that you're shedding, your friends, your habits, everything, where you just don't feel as connected, you don't feel like life is as real, you almost feel kind of like you're losing it a little bit. So you have to realize that this is just you spiritually shedding everything that doesn't serve you any longer. You're not losing it. You're not going crazy. These aren't things that we really need to think about. We need to think about feeling it and releasing it, shedding it, letting it unravel away from us. So, because those things aren't serving us any longer. Those are old ideals that just don't sit well within your energy, within your psyche, within everything that you do now. You're shifting into a higher state of consciousness. You're breaking through the mundane world and realizing that there's something more on the other side. And through that whole process, you got to let go of something, because we need that, everything that's coming down from spirit, everything that's coming down from the cosmos, everything that's coming up from Pachamama, Mother Earth. These are all things that need space within ourselves. And so we need to clear out some of the things that just don't serve us anymore, the things that don't align with what we're to become. So we need to let those things unravel and move away from us. So that's one thing that we really need to think about, is just the way that think about it, as we're spiritually shedding. You're not going crazy. Trust me. I've been through it. I've had all the bad. I've had all the good, and on the other side of things, you'll feel a lot better. It's not, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be this instant happiness and you're going to be this, enlightened person where you're going to be talking about love and light all the time and stuff like that, because it's not always that way. Because as much as we want it to, healing is ugly. Healing is hard. It's addressing and showing and dealing with all of the ugly sides that we don't want to, all the painful parts that we don't want to, all the parts that anger us that we don't want to deal with anymore. We wanted to, forget it, that the guy that flipped you off in traffic, and now you're angry for the rest of the day about it, and you feel like you should have done something. Okay, feel that emotion, and then let it out. Even if sometimes letting it out is going and doing something, going and screaming it out, going and running it out, working it out, whatever you need to do, that's what you need to do to let everything unravel through you, and then as everything unravels and you sit in that stillness and in that quiet, in those moments where things are just silent, take advantage of that silence. That silence is golden. We've all heard that saying many times. Silence is golden. But it's the stillness that comes after the collapse. Because after all those things melt away, and after we're, left crying on the bed, crying on the couch, in an emotional, very emotional state, and we feel like we've collapsed, That's when the stillness comes in. That's when we can really sit with ourselves and realize the beauty of falling apart, because this has been such a journey to let yourself go, let yourself feel, let yourself experience. So as we do all of these things, that's when the stillness comes in. And then in that stillness, that's when those true thoughts, that's when the true ideas, our true self, start to filter in. And then that's when we start letting more of spirit or the divine come in and let us receive messages. Let Mother Earth, as we ground and get ourselves into nature, let those moments, let that Mother Earth take over. Surrender to her, surrender to spirit. Let these messages come in, see what they say, sit in that silence, because that's where that is where the real growth is going to happen. It is when we are able to sit in the stillness. So always remember, sitting in the stillness is the way to clear your mind. It is the way to center yourself. It is the way to align yourself with a higher sense of yourself, the higher sense of the collective consciousness, higher in the divine light. So, we just really need to, look at everything that we've talked about here today. So, because we have this beauty in falling apart. So, remember that, breaking down it's not a failure. Breaking down and having those moments where you're pushing people away, where you're turning down the things that's going out with your friends to the club, going out with your friends to the bar, going to, whatever it might be that is your hobby. Sometimes you got to take a back step, and it's going to feel like you're really falling apart here, but that's all part of the design. The breakdown is an initiation to the sacred. It's not a failure. So don't ever think of yourself going down this path and trying to find yourself and trying to get enlightenment, get more connected with consciousness, with your subconscious, getting more connected to spirit or the divine or to Mother Earth. All of these things are sacred things that us as human beings in our flesh suits that we're walking around in, that's what we all want. We all want that enlightenment. We all want that peace. Sometimes we find that enlightenment in religion, and we find that peace in religion. Sometimes it's outside of religion. Sometimes it's simply being in nature. That's where we find our peace, our serenity, our connectedness is out in nature. And some of it's through, our spiritual work and sitting in our meditations and sitting in our rituals and going through this and processing these emotions, because we're always going to be on this ever evolving path. It's never going to be, you can get to a point where you can say, I've had enough. I don't want to go anymore, but then realize that you're putting yourself in a state of being stuck. And that's never a spot that any of us want to be. We're always striving for more. We're always striving for better. But we need to be able to grow. But before we can grow, we have to break down. So just remember that breaking down is part of the sacred initiation into becoming more in tuned with yourself, more aligned with yourself and with everything else in the world. So, and then we want to reiterate that we don't want to suppress those feelings as much as we want to push them down, and we don't want to deal with it. And, or sometimes another way of suppression is through the solace in the bottle, finding, going out and smoking some weed, going out and doing whatever it is might be taking that edge off of yourself. Those are other ways that you're suppressing your feelings, because you're not feeling it. You're trying to avoid it through substances or chemicals. That's not healthy for your body, and it's definitely not healthy for your mind because, like I said, we're just suppressing instead of surrendering to it. So you got to let yourself feel those things. You got to let yourself breathe. Take the time to settle your mind and just let it happen. Cry it out, scream it out, whatever it takes. Surrender to your feelings, surrender to your emotions, surrender to the situation, whatever it might be, because there's no point in trying to fight it because you'll never be where you want to be at the end of the day. So, and then again, remember that this is, you're not going crazy. Trust me, as much as, there have been times where I've personally dealt with, I think I'm going crazy. And I have to reach out to, other people within my community and have a conversation and be like, look, this is what I'm going through. You know, what do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, I've had a friend, or I've personally gone through this, because we're all at different stages. So when you can find a sense of community and you can find a sense of someone that you can talk to about these things, it really helps through this falling apart process, because sometimes, like I said, people think they're losing it. So you gotta have that person or those people or that community that you can confide in. And sometimes we find those in, Facebook groups. Sometimes we find them through local crystal shops or other metaphysical stores. There are tons of groups that gather or get together, share ideas, reflect ideas in, like I said, on those Facebook groups, or even, in person for some of those things. So it's all on you and you seeking out those types of things. But, you just have to remember you're not going crazy. But whenever there is something to talk about, something you need to bounce off someone, heck, you can even reach out to me. Send me some comments, send me a message, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And we can go through everything that that's bothering you, that's on your mind, that you want to go through. So, and remember the stillness at the end. That's when you've gotten to a point of one point of completion, because you're not just going to have one moment of stillness and that's going to be your aha moment forever. You're going to have these aha moments come up throughout many years of your life, and as you learn and gain more knowledge and practice your rituals and things like that, that's when those things start to come out a little bit more and more and more. But we're all here together. We're all here to help each other out, and let's keep it as easy going as possible and keep the lines of communication going with people within the community. And that's going to be our way through things, because we can't keep going around, because that's avoidance, that's suppression. We got to go through it. That's the way to surrender. This is Steve at Roots and Remedy, and this has been Sacred Unfiltered. I hope you guys have a great day and look forward to seeing you guys the next time.